Listen carefully, young ones, for I am about to tell you the most humiliating tale in our entire galactic history. A story so embarrassing that it makes our entire species want to hide under the nearest rock for the next millennium. My name is Corvus Thane, and I was there. Oh yes, I witnessed every single, agonizing second of what became known as the 9-second nightmare. It started with Vex Mordan. Now, if you have never heard of Vex Mordan, then you clearly have not been paying attention to the greatest warriors of our time. This being was a legend among legends, a master of the blade so skilled that other masters would weep just watching him practice, for 200 years. And I mean exactly 200 years, 3 months and 17 days. Vex dedicated every waking moment to perfecting his swordsmanship. 200 years. Do you comprehend what that means? While the rest of us were busy living our lives, having families, pursuing careers, maybe enjoying a hobby or two, Vex was in his training chamber, swinging that cursed blade of his from dawn until dusk, every single day. No vacations, no sick days, no maybe I will take a break today nonsense. The dedication was both inspiring and absolutely terrifying. I remember visiting his training facility once. The walls were scarred with thousands upon thousands of practice strikes. The floor had grooves worn into it from his footwork patterns. The air itself seemed to hum with the memory of blade movements. It was like stepping into a shrine dedicated to the art of violence, beautiful in a deeply disturbing way. Vex could slice through reinforced steel like it was soft cheese. He could cut through energy shields that were designed to stop plasma cannons. Once, during a demonstration, he sliced a single grain of sand into 17 perfectly equal pieces while it was falling through the air. 17 pieces. Who even thinks to try something like that? His technique was flawless. His speed was beyond measurement. His precision made our most advanced targeting computers look like toys operated by drunken children. Masters from across the galaxy would make pilgrimages just to watch him train. Some would stand there for hours, mouths agape, trying to understand how a being could move with such impossible grace and power. But here is where the story gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean where everything went horribly, spectacularly wrong. The humans had just joined the Galactic Federation, fresh-faced, eager, and completely ignorant of how things worked in civilized space. They arrived with their primitive technology, their bizarre customs, and their absolutely baffling confidence. Most of us found them amusing in the way you might find a young child amusing when they claim they can fly. They were so ordinary. Average height, average build, no natural weapons, no enhanced senses, no special abilities whatsoever. They had not even figured out proper energy weapons yet. They were still using projectile weapons that literally threw small pieces of metal at their enemies. It was adorable, really. The Federation Council decided to hold a grand celebration to welcome our new human friends. There would be cultural exchanges, diplomatic ceremonies, and of course combat demonstrations, because nothing says welcome to the neighborhood. Toro. Mani. Yin. It's like showing off how efficiently we can dismember each other. Vex was invited to demonstrate the art of blade combat. This was a tremendous honor, mind you. Only the most skilled warriors were ever asked to perform at such prestigious events. The plan was simple. Vex would showcase some basic techniques, maybe spar with a few volunteers, and everyone would applaud politely while the humans stood there, looking impressed and slightly intimidated. That was the plan. The universe, however, had other ideas. As Vex prepared for his demonstration, word spread through the human delegation. They seemed excited, chattering among themselves in their strange, rapid language. Most of us assumed they were simply eager to witness true martial artistry for the first time. The demonstration area was set up in the main amphitheater. Thousands of beings from dozens of species gathered to watch. The lighting was perfect. The acoustics were flawless, and the stage was prepared for what everyone expected to be a magnificent display of skill and power. Vex entered wearing his ceremonial combat robes, his legendary blade gleaming at his side. The crowd fell silent. Even the most jaded warriors present could feel the aura of deadly competence that surrounded him like a visible force. This was a being who had transcended normal limitations, who had achieved a level of mastery that bordered on the supernatural. He began with basic forms, movements so fluid and precise that they seemed more like a dance than combat techniques. The blades sang through the air, creating patterns of light and shadow that were almost hypnotic to watch. Gasps of appreciation rippled through the audience. Even the humans appeared suitably awed. Then came the demonstrations of power. Vex effortlessly sliced through target drones, energy barriers, and reinforced training dummies. Each cut was perfect, each movement economical and devastating. The crowd was eating it up. This was exactly the kind of display that would show these newcomer humans what real civilization looked like. But then, from the human section, came a voice, clear, confident, and absolutely dripping with what I can only describe as casual disrespect. "That's pretty good, but can I give it a try?" The entire amphitheater went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the vacuum of space. Thousands of beings turned to stare at the source of this incredible audacity. Standing in the middle of the human delegation was the most unremarkable specimen of humanity I had ever seen. Her name was Maya Torres. Average height for a human, maybe slightly shorter, brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, wearing what appeared to be standard human civilian clothing. No visible weapons, no armor, no ceremonial robes or mystical accessories. She looked like someone you might pass on the street without giving a second thought. The nervous laughter started immediately. Surely this was some kind of joke? This ordinary-looking human wanted to challenge Vex Mordan? The same Vex Mordan who had spent 2 centuries perfecting his craft. The same Vex Mordan who could cut through matter at the molecular level. Vex himself seemed more amused than offended. He had dealt with overconfident youngsters before. Usually a simple demonstration of the vast difference in skill levels was enough to restore proper respect and humility. He nodded graciously and gestured for Maya to join him on the demonstration floor. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. This was going to be educational. The humans would learn an important lesson about the dangers of hubris, and everyone else would enjoy watching it happen. Some beings were already placing bets on how quickly the human would yield. Maya walked down to the floor with that peculiar human confidence that we had all noticed but not yet understood. She did not seem nervous or intimidated. If anything, she appeared almost bored, like this was just another routine task to check off her daily list. "Do you have any training with blade weapons?" Vex asked politely, giving her one last chance to back down gracefully. Maya shrugged. "Some. I took a few classes back on Earth. Learned the basics, you know." "A few classes." The basics. The audience was now openly laughing. This was beyond amusing. This was comedy gold. A human with a few basic lessons wanted to spar with a master who had trained for 2 centuries. Vex handed her a practice blade, its edge dulled for safety but its weight and balance identical to a real weapon. Maya hefted it experimentally, gave it a few casual swings, and nodded approvingly. "Nice balance," she commented. "Reminds me of the katanas we used in my Tuesday evening class." Tuesday evening class. As if blade mastery was something you could pick up between dinner and bedtime. The laughter grew louder. Even some of the more serious warrior species were chuckling now. Vex took his position, practice blade held in a perfect guard stance. His form was textbook perfection, every muscle properly aligned, every angle optimized for maximum efficiency and power. 2 centuries of training were evident in every subtle detail of his posture. Maya stood opposite him, holding her blade in what could generously be called a guard position. It was technically correct, but it lacked the refinement and precision that marked a true swordsman. She looked like someone who had indeed learned the basics in a few casual classes. "Whenever you are ready," Vex said graciously. The timekeeper raised his hand. The crowd held its breath. History was about to be made, though none of us realized just what kind of history it would be. Begin. What happened next took exactly 9 seconds. I know this because I checked the official recordings afterward, frame by frame, trying to understand what I had witnessed. For the first second, both fighters stood motionless, studying each other. This was normal. Experienced combatants always took a moment to assess their opponent before committing to action. In the second, Vex began his attack. It was a classic opening gambit. a probing strike designed to test his opponent's reactions and defenses. A beautiful technique, flawlessly executed. Maya responded in the 3rd second, and that is when everything started to go wrong for our side. Her parry was not just successful, it was impossibly efficient. She deflected Vex's strike with minimal effort, redirecting his blade with such perfect timing and positioning that he was forced to abandon his follow-up attack and reset his stance. The 4th second saw Vex launch a more aggressive combination. 3 strikes in rapid succession, each one coming from a different angle, each one capable of ending the match if it connected. His blade moved so fast it was barely visible, creating that characteristic humming sound that marked a true master at work. Maya dealt with all 3 strikes in the 5th second. She did not just block them, she made them look easy. Her blade seemed to know exactly where Vex's strikes were going to be, meeting each one with casual precision. Her footwork was smooth and economical, never wasting motion, never overcommitting. By the 6th second, Vex was beginning to realize that something was very wrong. This human was not fighting like someone with basic training. Her responses were too clean, too efficient, too perfect. He stepped up his game, unleashing techniques that he normally reserved for serious opponents. Maya stepped up her game in the 7th second, and that is when it became clear that we had all been terribly, horribly wrong about everything. Her counterattack came in the 8th second, and it was a thing of terrible beauty. A single, flowing movement that somehow bypassed every one of Vex's defenses as if they did not exist. Her blade moved with impossible precision, finding the one tiny gap in his guard that should not have been there, should not have been visible, should not have been exploitable. The 9th second was when Vex Mordan, master of the blade, student of 2 centuries of training, pride of our warrior tradition, that found himself flat on his back with a practice blade pressed gently against his throat. 9 seconds. From start to finish, 9 seconds to completely destroy everything we thought we knew about combat, about training, about what it meant to be a warrior. The silence that followed was deeper than the vacuum between stars. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody even blinked. The entire amphitheater had become a monument to collective shock, thousands of beings frozen in disbelief at what they had just witnessed. Maya Torres stood there, practice blade still resting against Vex's throat, looking about as concerned as someone who had just completed a mildly interesting crossword puzzle. She glanced around at the stunned faces surrounding her and raised an eyebrow. "Was that supposed to take longer?" she asked. That single question broke the spell. The silence shattered like glass, replaced by an explosion of voices, shouts, accusations, and what I can only describe as the sound of several civilizations having simultaneous nervous breakdowns. "Impossible." Someone screamed from the Corvanian section. "Cheating." Howled a Draconian warrior. "Check her for enhancement implants." Demanded a Centauri battlemaster. Maya stepped back and offered her hand to help Vex up. He stared at it for a long moment, as if he had never seen a hand before, then slowly accepted the assistance. His legs were shaking. His face had gone completely pale. This was a being who had faced death in 1,000 battles without flinching, and he looked like he had just seen his entire universe collapse. "How?" he whispered, his voice barely audible above the chaos. "How did you do that?" Maya shrugged with that infuriating human casualness. "I watched you fight for about 5 minutes before we started. You telegraph your moves really obviously. Plus you have this habit of dropping your guard by exactly 2 centimeters every time you finish a combination. Basic pattern recognition, really. Basic pattern recognition." She had analyzed and defeated 2 centuries of training using basic pattern recognition. The insult was so profound that several warriors in the audience actually fainted, but Maya was not finished destroying our egos. Oh no, she was just getting started. Also, she continued, examining the practice blade with mild interest, "Your technique is really inefficient. All those fancy flourishes look impressive, but they waste energy and create unnecessary openings. We had a guy in my Tuesday class who fought exactly like you. Same problems, same weaknesses." A guy in her Tuesday class. She was comparing the greatest blade master in galactic history to some random human from her casual evening lessons. The audacity was breathtaking. What Tuesday class? I found myself asking, though I immediately regretted opening my mouth. Maya turned to me with that same casual expression. Community center near my apartment. $20 a month. Includes equipment rental. Pretty good deal, actually. We had about 15 regulars. $20. 15 regulars. She had learned to defeat our greatest warrior at a community center class that cost $20 a month. The economic implications alone were staggering. Vex was still standing there, swaying slightly, looking like someone had just explained that mathematics was actually wrong and 2 plus 2 equaled 17. But he stammered, "But I trained for 200 years. Yeah, that's actually part of the problem," Maya replied with devastating honesty. You trained the same wrong techniques for 200 years. Really set those bad habits in stone. Must be tough to break now. The sound that emerged from Vex at that moment was not quite a sob, not quite a scream, but somewhere in between. It was the sound of a soul breaking. "Would you like some pointers?" Maya asked helpfully. Several beings in the audience made choking noises. The Corvanian ambassador actually fell out of his chair. The Centauri delegation began a heated argument about whether they should declare war on humanity immediately, or just retreat to their home systems and never come out again. But here is where the story takes an even more bizarre turn. If such a thing was possible. "Yes," Vex whispered. "Please." And that is how Maya Torres, recent graduate of Tuesday evening sword class, began giving martial arts instruction to the greatest blade master in known history, that in front of thousands of representatives from dozens of species, at the most prestigious diplomatic event in galactic politics. "Okay, first thing," Maya said, stepping into a basic stance. "Stop trying to look intimidating. I know you want to project this whole deadly warrior vibe, but it makes you predictable. Relaxed is better than tense." She demonstrated a simple guard position. It looked almost lazy compared to Vex's picture-perfect forms, but there was something about it that made experienced fighters in the audience lean forward with sudden interest. "See how I'm holding my weight? I can move in any direction without telegraphing. You're always leaning slightly toward your dominant side, so I know exactly where your first strike is going to come from." Vex tried to copy her stance. It looked wrong on him, like he was fighting against 2 centuries of muscle memory, which of course he was. "Now, about those combinations you love so much," Maya continued. 3 strike sequences are pretty, but they are commitments. Once you start one, you have to finish it, even if the situation changes. Try single strikes with multiple follow-up options instead. She showed him what she meant. Launching a single attack, but keeping her blade and body positioned so she could instantly transition to 5 different follow-ups depending on how her opponent responded. It was like watching someone play chess while everyone else was playing checkers. The audience was divided between fascination and horror. Some were taking notes. Others were questioning their entire understanding of combat. A few had simply given up and were staring at the ceiling, probably contemplating the meaninglessness of existence. "Your footwork is actually not bad," Maya admitted, "but you are thinking about it too much. Stop trying to hit your marks perfectly and just go where you need to go. Fighting is not choreography." For the next hour, Maya Torres systematically deconstructed and rebuilt the fighting style of the galaxy's greatest warrior. She pointed out flaws that no one had noticed in 2 centuries. She showed him techniques that were simultaneously simpler and more effective than anything he had learned. She treated the whole thing like she was helping a neighbor fix a broken fence. The most terrifying part: Vex was getting better. Visibly, measurably better. Within minutes of Maya's instruction, his movements became more efficient, his guard more solid, his attacks more unpredictable. It was like watching someone remove invisible chains from a dancer. "There you go," Maya said after Vex successfully executed a technique she had just taught him. "That's much better. You actually looked dangerous there for a second." "Dangerous." She said it like giving someone a compliment on their haircut. By now, word of what was happening had spread throughout the space station. Beings were abandoning their diplomatic duties to crowd into the amphitheater. The official schedule had been completely forgotten. Nobody cared about trade agreements or territorial disputes anymore. They were all trying to understand how their entire conception of warfare had just been turned upside down by a human with $20 a month training. "I should probably mention," Maya said during a brief break, "I'm not even our best student. That would be Jim Peterson. Insurance salesman, been coming to class for about 8 months now. He'd probably beat me 3 times out of 5. Insurance salesman. Their best student was an insurance salesman. The implications were starting to sink in. If Maya could defeat Vex, and Jim Peterson could defeat Maya, then what did that say about human combat potential? How many humans know how to fight like this? Asked Admiral Kareth, the most respected military strategist in the Federation. Maya thought about it for a moment. Hard to say. Martial arts are pretty popular back home. Probably a few million people have at least basic training. Maybe 100,000 who are really serious about it. 100,000. 100,000 humans who could potentially do what Maya had just done. The military implications were staggering. Every species in the galaxy would need to completely rethink their defense strategies. But most of us are not warriors, Maya continued, completely oblivious to the panic she was causing. We just do it for fitness and fun. Dad, it's a hobby. Mostly a hobby. She had just revolutionized galactic combat theory as a hobby. The demonstration officially ended when Maya checked her chronometer and announced that she needed to get back to her delegation. "We have a cultural exchange dinner tonight, and I promised to bring dessert. Earth chocolate chip cookies. You guys are going to love them." She handed the practice blade back to Vex, who was still staring at her like she was some kind of supernatural phenomenon. "Thanks for the practice session," she said cheerfully. "You are really going to be something once you break those old habits. Just remember, efficiency over elegance, adaptation over automation, and never let your opponent know what you are thinking." And with that, Maya Torres walked out of the amphitheater, leaving behind several thousand beings who were questioning everything they thought they knew about combat, training, and the nature of warfare itself. Vex stood alone on the demonstration floor, holding a practice blade that suddenly felt foreign in his hands. 200 years of training, and a human had just taught him more in 1 hour than he had learned in the previous decade. The really terrifying part. She was right. Everything she had said was absolutely, undeniably correct. His techniques were inefficient. His combinations were predictable. His stance was compromised. 2 centuries of training, and he had been doing it wrong the entire time. But Maya Torres, with her $20 community center classes and her casual Tuesday evening sessions, had figured out what none of our greatest masters had ever realized. Sometimes the best way to be deadly is to stop trying so hard to look deadly. The humans, it turned out, did not approach combat like a sacred art or a noble tradition. They approached it like a problem to be solved, with the same practical efficiency they brought to everything else. No ceremony, no mysticism, no ancient wisdom passed down through generations, just simple, brutal effectiveness. That night, as I sat in my quarters trying to process what I had witnessed, I received a message from Maya Torres. She had somehow obtained my contact information and wanted to thank me for attending the demonstration. "I hope I did not embarrass your friend too badly," the message read. "He seems like a nice guy, just a bit set in his ways. If he wants to keep training, there are some great online tutorials I could recommend. Really basic stuff. But it might help him break some of those old patterns." Online tutorials. She was offering to help the greatest blade master in galactic history with online tutorials. I am writing this account 3 months later. 3 months during which everything has changed. Human martial arts instructors are now the most sought-after teachers in the galaxy. Vex Mordan has become Maya's most dedicated student, training via quantum communication link with her Tuesday evening class. He says he has learned more in 3 months than he did in the previous 50 years. Maya Torres still takes the community center class every Tuesday. She still pays $20 a month. Mason's eye. She still considers it a casual hobby, something she does for fun and fitness between her real job as a software engineer. And Jim Peterson, the insurance salesman? He recently agreed to give a demonstration at the Corvanian Military Academy. The entire warrior caste is in training to attend. So there you have it. Young ones. The most humiliating story in our galactic history. The day we learned that 2 centuries of dedicated training could be defeated by 9 seconds of human practicality. The day we learned that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who never wanted to be dangerous at all. Maya Torres changed everything in 9 seconds. But the real lesson took much longer to sink in. Humans do not train to be warriors because they love war. They train to be warriors so they can get back to the things they actually care about as quickly as possible. Efficiency over elegance. Adaptation over automation. And never, ever underestimate someone who learned to fight at a community center for $20 a month. Class dismissed.